first question that comes in is, how can I get less competitive keywords for keywords which have higher click-through rate? So I'm assuming you're saying, how do I get less competitive keywords and have a higher click-through rate? So I'm going to use an example I like to give from time to time, and that is marker. So this is a dry erase marker. You know, you can put on a dry erase board and then, you know, erase it off. Teachers now no longer use chalk on the chalkboard. They use dry erase markers. So lots of people in the business settings, people use dry erase markers. So let's just go down the rabbit hole of basically the shorter tail keywords, ones that you're going to have a lot more search volume, versus ones that are more niche and narrow, have less volume, but would have a higher click-through rates and potentially be more relevant. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So I'm going to share. All right. So you should see on here that I am on Amazon, as I'm sure everyone is familiar with. All right. So I'm just going to look up marker. So I'm looking at markers. This is a dry erase marker. So what do we see here? We see Sharpies. See lots of Sharpies. So these are like smaller Sharpies, like if you're writing something and you need like a permanent, which this is definitely not permanent. We see the Crayola kind of crafting markers, more kind of crafting markers, like, you know, lots of different colors, lots of crafting markers, permanent markers, Sharpie style markers, Sharpie markers, art markers. I don't see anywhere on here. There's Crayola markers. So it's basically Sharpie and arts and crafts. Oh, here we go. Down here, I see a dry erase marker. So I had to go a little ways to find any dry erase markers. And okay, here's more dry erase markers, more dry erase markers. Start showing up more and more. A book called Marker. So you can see the results are kind of all over the place with what kind of markers show up when I look up marker. A lot of times people will say like, oh, okay, I look in Helium 10 or on Search Query Performance Report or whatever I'm looking at, and I see a lot of search volume for marker. So I'm going to go after marker. However, if I'm the customer and I'm like, oh, okay, I search for marker. And then I like, oh, this is the best seller. I click on that. And then I realize, oh, wait, that's a permanent marker. So what do? I hit the back button, or I refine my search, or I look for other things. Maybe I click on something else on that page, because this Sharpie is not solving the problem I'm trying to solve, which if my problem is I need a dry erase marker, I'm going to do better if I'm searching for dry erase marker. So let's just look real quick. So dry erase. So, okay, so we see all these, you know, big packs or whatever. But what if I just want red for whatever reason? Maybe I've got a bunch of black ones. I do accounting and I want to show red for expenses or whatever purpose. I want to highlight certain things and I like to use red. So if I'm the customer, I want to use red. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to type in red dry erase marker. Now it's pretty much all red dry erase markers. Yeah, or maybe it's a set with red mixed in, but there's different types of dry erase markers, you know, different tips. So for the most part, what's showing up is markers that are erasable, the, you know, dry erase marker. So if I'm looking for a red dry erase marker and I'm selling a red dry erase marker, what I want is more likely here, because as we saw, if I'm just looking at marker, it's all over the place. It's not even necessarily markers or, you know, dry erase markers. It's like craft markers and permanent markers like Sharpies, like if I was, you know, wanting people to sign baseball cards or something like that. So there's all kinds of different, you know, terms that I could advertise on if I want to sell dry erase markers, but I probably want to get a little bit more specific. Maybe I want to go after marker, but the problem is as you can see, if I'm selling a red dry erase marker, it's completely different from one spot to the other. So just something to keep in mind is that if you're asking how do I find keywords that have lower search volume but potentially or less competitive, because who's not on here? Sharpie's not on here. Crayola's not on here. So companies that have lots of money to spend, yeah, maybe Expo, they're kind of like the big name brand with dry erase markers, but there's other non-name brand. When I say name brand, I mean like that people would recognize the name brand. Like oftentimes if you go to like Staples or Office Depot or someplace like that, you would see Expo markers. So if you're familiar with dry erase markers, you're probably very familiar with Expo. So you see, like, I have more opportunity if I'm not the name brand player. If I'm selling a red dry erase marker, now I would be getting a lot less search traffic than just dry erase marker. And I would also have less traffic than if I was going after just marker. But you can see the search results are closer to what the customer is looking for. So the closer you are to solving the problem, the pain point, the desire, the whatever the person is looking for, the more relevant it is, the more likely they're going to click. Because if they look up marker, are they looking for Sharpies? Are they looking for, Crayola markers to, because they got to, replace markers for their kids' art project at, in kindergarten? Or, is this an adult doing adult coloring books? Like, what is going on here? So you kind of got to think through, like, what is the customer looking for? And are you solving that with that keyword? Now, maybe sometimes broader keywords, you'll find other potential opportunities, but they can oftentimes be more expensive because the keyword itself might be more expensive and it's less relevant. So you have less of a click-through rate and potentially more people just window shopping and just clicking around, and they're higher up funnel because they're not sure what to describe what they're looking for. So hopefully that was helpful there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Kitty, since you were the first person to ask a question, email podcast@myamazonguy.com and I will get you access to the PPC course on Mag School for free. And if you don't hear back from anybody within 2 days, email again, please. I want to make sure I hold that promise. Sometimes I was giving people my direct email address, but then things were ending up in spam for whatever reason. So hopefully this gets there because podcast is monitored by several people. So we'll make sure to take care of you. All right. So Skin First says best keyword targeting for pimple patches. Good question. I'm honestly not sure. Now, there's tools you could use. You could use like Helium-10 and whatnot. But I'm just going to use what's right in front of us on Amazon to at least start the process. So if I'm just looking for, pimple patches, so I can look and see kind of like with pimple patches, I'm probably make sure this microphone doesn't lose some of its audio because I'm looking in the wrong spot. All right. So if I was quiet earlier because my microphone was not pointed in the right direction, I apologize for that. But you can see pimple patches, like, okay, pimple patches for face. I'm assuming that's what this is for, as opposed to pimple patches for like your back or your chest or whatever the case is. Hydrocolloid. So maybe the active ingredient. Pimple patches for face, fast acting, I'm imagining. So, all right. So sometimes you get just from looking on the page itself, kind of what keywords are in like the titles for, I'm assuming this is probably a pretty big keyword. Yeah. Cause if this one here has 166,000 reviews, 90K bought last month, then yeah, there's definitely lots of people looking at this. So I would look and see like, okay, so for some of these like that are really doing well, like this one here, they sold over 90,000 last month. They have lots of reviews, #1 top rated, what is it keywords they have? And that'll kind of clue you in onto what are some potential keywords to start your search. Then what you could always do here is also just look and see what shows up after you type in pimple patches. So you can see pimple patches for face, pimple patches stars, cute, large, micro dart, invisible. So like if you were selling one that's like cute and is in the shape of a star, you might not want to use invisible unless it's fixing both situations there, which I doubt would be the case. But anyway, pimples, patches for face, things of that nature. So just look and see like what are the other keywords that are showing up, because this can be a gold mine sometimes for what shows up in auto search, or the auto suggest, I should say. So that'll help you there. All right, let's go to another question here. Dabaj Haydar says, hey, I have one question. That's great. Did you ask it already? Oh, it's down there. I've been struggling for the last 6 months, but still have not found any clients and work. Please guide. So that would be a different topic than we're talking about here, but I'm more than happy to help point you in the right direction. So I would say one of the things you could do is one, read $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozy. One of the things he talks about is doing work for free. Because if you have been at this for 6 months and you don't have any clients or work, you need to have some, I'm assuming here, which I'm assuming based on little information, you don't have a lot of social proof, meaning testimonials or case studies. And the more you can show testimonials and case studies, the better off you'll do. Like I can tell you, as the person who sends out a lot of my Amazon guys emails, that if we're looking to get people to book calls with us, the most effective way we do that is by showing people, hey, here's what we did for other people. So when we do case studies, we book lots of calls. So I would look at, how do you get case studies? Either if you have previous employment, how can you get some of those case studies? Even if you just talk about it, the more visual you can be, the better. I have found as well. So hopefully that will help you. How do we do a PPC audit of how do you do a PPC audit of your client accounts? So a couple things. There is a video on the My Amazon Guy channel, which was put out maybe about a month or two ago by Noah Wickham. Shout out to our now director of sales, formerly our brand director, Noah Wickham. And he, in this video, walked through how to do a account audit. I didn't ask Serge to do this, but I'm just going to throw this out there. So a complete shameless plug. If you go to myamazonguy.com/enroll, we are actually offering a PPC audit. For normally an account audit is $1,000, but we're offering it where we'll do an account audit of your ads for $397, and that ends tonight at midnight Eastern time. So it is the 12th of November, and it ends in less than 12 hours. So if that's something of interest to you, head on over there, and our team will just need to get a little bit of information from you within, a few days. We'll get back to you with like, here's some recommendations, very in depth of what to do, which would be great, especially with the holiday season's coming right around the corner. So we are 2.5 weeks away from Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So no time like the present. All right. So next up, let's get back to some more questions. We have people telling us where they're coming from. All right. So we have Serge joining us from Moldova. So thank you, Serge, for joining us from Moldova. We have Pasca joining us from Romania. We have Salih joining us from Turkey. We have Skin First from Ireland. We have Kitty from Bangladesh. We have Med Amin joining us from Qatar. Hamza is joining us from Pakistan. Goran is joining us from Serbia. We have Dabaj also joining us from Pakistan. Keith is joining us from Pakistan. So we have people from all over, and also from Bangladesh. So hopefully this is helpful, everything we're going over here. So feel free to drop in your questions. I'll be kind of skipping around, but for the most part, trying to go in order. If you kind of remember from high school or college or whatever the case is, your teacher says, does anyone have any questions? And everyone just kind of like stares around the room, staring at each other. No, we have questions already being asked here. But oftentimes more questions are asked towards the end because there's this energy of like, oh, this person asked this question, and that reminds me of this question I have. So you may just want to think through, do you have any questions? If you want to ask questions, ask them now, not just when everyone else is asking questions towards the end, because we will cut off this stream at some point. So get your questions in now. The best chance of getting them answered. So, all right. Going back to some more questions, Sali asks, how does the adjust bids by placement feature work, and how can I use it effectively? So basically, it's a percentage that you can increase your bids for that campaign for the placements of top of search, rest of search, and product pages. Used to be you couldn't do rest of search. It was just the other two that you could increase. So if you want to increase by 20% for top of search, if all of your bids, just for ease of math here, are $1 in that campaign, then you'd be now bidding $1.20 on top of search placements. Different people have different opinions on them. One of the challenges is if you have campaigns that have lots and lots of keywords, you don't necessarily know which ones are going after. So I would say if you're going to use this, have some keywords campaigns and ad groups that have smaller numbers of keywords, which will give you more ability to test that out. But I would say first, figure out how to make a campaign profitable before worrying about placements. My personal opinion, I think placements is more of a icing on the cake, or even adding sprinkles to the icing, than it is the cake itself. So bids and keyword targeting, in my opinion, is where to start your focus. And then placements would be kind of like that next step. Like, hey, I want to get more impressions for something. I want to throw gas on a fire that's already burning, or this is already doing well, so I want to get more bang for my buck. So I want to try to get, higher impressions. Because in some cases, you might already be on top of search without putting in the placement modifier. There's no sense adding the placement modifier, in my opinion. So let the data speak for itself and the need to add in the modifiers as time goes on. All right. So how do I find good keywords for EU marketplaces? Same thing. So for example, figure out what those main keywords are. So if you're like an Amazon DE, for example, you probably want to work with someone who's a native speaker, because like Amazon DE being Germany, German language is very precise. But you could still use auto suggest to give you ideas of potential keywords, as well as, you could use tools like Helium 10 to help you with that, like Cerebro, like what are other similar products to yours ranking for? And then you maybe just throw all those into Google Translate to give you an idea, but you're going to lose some of the semantic intent behind that because you don't know the language unless you are a native speaker. But then also keep in mind that sometimes different countries speak the same language differently. So the way people search for things on Amazon Mexico is going to be different than the way people search maybe on Amazon Spain. Like there's subtle differences. And just my own personal opinion, maybe someone that speaks Spanish can, agree or disagree, but, I live in Florida, lots of people from lots of different countries that speak Spanish that are in Florida, Mexico, Honduras, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Colombia, Puerto Rico, all of them have kind of slightly different dialects. So the way they pronounce things might be different, and the way they look things up are different. So I would get a native speaker to localize it for you when you're looking in, different languages in EU marketplaces. All right. Let's get to another question here. Scrolling down. So how do you budget for an item with a very low margin and low profit margin, like $1.90? one click can take up the cost of PPC. All right. So this is a good question. So you've got an item with only $1.90 profit margin. And I would challenge yourself, how accurate is that $1.90 of profit margin? So are you including in inbound fees? Are you including the inbound transportation fee? So meaning the fees they're now charging you, unless you can figure out a way to avoid them using Amazon AWD, or if you're sending in, like, a lot of people I've talked to have said that, and I've found this to be the case too, if you're sending at least 5 cases of an item, and they have the option to move it around to 3 or 4 different warehouses. Sometimes you can avoid the inbound fees. So those individual fees per unit, as well as the inbound transportation charge, which is like the charge for, like, if you're using partner carriers for pallets for LTL, or partner carriers for individual cartons. So all of those are things you want to add up, all these different fees. So point being, lots of fees. Did you include every little fee you could possibly charge? If your average unit is going to be in a warehouse for 3 months, did you account for that? Did you account for the fact that it's ridiculously high inventory fees now compared to what it was in September? So now that we're in Q4, I got sticker shock myself the other day when I got a charge for inventory. So are you adding up all these little fees, and that's how you got to $1.90? I'm going to assume you did, and I'm just more helping everyone else out with that. I would go really low with that. So for example, if you said it was $1.90 and you're like, what is my break even? So let's say you had a 10%, let's use a different number. So let's say you had a 12% conversion rate. So that means that's $1.90 times 0.12. So you could bid. No, that didn't make sense. So what I would do is take 1 divided by 0.12. So it's basically 8.3 clicks. So let's just call that 9 clicks to get a sale. So if I take $1.90 divided by 9 clicks to get a sale, this is even just break even. So 9 clicks based on a roughly 12% conversion rate. That means you can spend up to 21 cents and break even. So you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And maybe it is. Sometimes if your product is really low margin, all your competitors are really low margin. So, supplements have super high clicks because they also have a lifetime value of the customer. So if your $1.90 product, is that something you can sell and subscribe and save? Then maybe it's worth it to you to even lose a little bit of money. If it's not, then you have to ask yourself, is it worth advertising? Which in most cases it would be. So I would look and see, like, when we're talking about $1.90, I mean, are you selling like USB cables for $8 or something like that? So, is there any way you can now start saving money somewhere else? I would start looking at that. But to simply answer your question, how many clicks is it going to take to get a sale based on your conversion rate? So 1 divided by conversion rate is number of clicks to get a sale. And take whatever your whatever your margin is per unit divided by clicks to get a sale. And that tells you how much you could spend and break even per click. So that might not be the answer you wanted, but hopefully that at least helps point you in the right direction. But then you can, maybe if this is the launch and you're just trying to get initial sales in and it's not going to be profitable, but you at least want to spike the algorithm, so to speak. Like, you want at least the algorithm to know you're there. You got to have sales. So in order to get impressions, you got to have sales. But in order to get sales, you got to have impressions. So it's this vicious chicken and egg cycle. So ads can at least help you get out of that chicken and egg cycle. All right. So Journeyman asks, when I negated a big list of non-relevant keywords, only the exact campaigns convert. Why don't I just focus on the top 50 keywords with them in their own exact campaign and no broader phrase? Good question. If Steven was here, he would say, you can do that if you want. However, you're going to find that oftentimes some of the best deals are in broad and phrase. So I would take those 50 keywords and maybe put them into broad campaigns. Now, what most people in the PPC world would tell you to do is don't put more than like 5 or 10 in a campaign. I tend to sometimes go more than that because I sell products that don't themselves sell a lot, but I sell a lot of products, like a lot of SKUs. So depending on how much of a prison you want to build for yourself is my personal opinion, meaning how much administrative work do you want to do to keep up with all these different campaigns? So depends on how much work versus, how much control do you need? And if you're doing lots and lots of sales and getting lots and lots of clicks, then you want to have less and less keywords per campaign. But if you're not, then you can get away with having more keywords in a campaign. So back to your question though, is should you just do exact match? You could, but what you could also do potentially is do broad and phrase and then start really looking at, like, for example, or let me take a step back, do the broad and phrase, but really look at negating more and more keywords. So for example, if you're selling red dry erase marker, but you're showing up for blue dry erase marker for that campaign, get rid of blue. Or if you're finding you sell a whole bunch of dry erase markers, like maybe a set of 10 different colors, but you never make sales for red and you show up for a bunch of, click here, click there for red. And you realize that, maybe you've done 30 clicks and you get no sales. If you add them all up, then just get rid of red by making it a negative phrase for the word red, because that's not helping you. So I would say focus on the broad and the phrase, but do more negating of your keywords. All right. So Akifa Tariq says, can I get a Amazon PPC free course too? You never know, but it's all about participation. So you never know. Who knows? Might throw it out there later. Stick around to the end. I'll probably do some sort of giveaway. All right. Brian B says, morning. Hope you're getting some well-needed rest. Thank you for that. I hope I can get some well-needed rest too. But hope all is well with you, Brian. All right. Hamza says, I have the answer for this question. Okay. So to effectively target keywords for pimple patches, you want to focus on both broad and specific keywords, considering popular search phrases. Yeah. Okay. Not too far off. Christian Andres Ojeda says, what is the recommended stock for PPC? For example, if a product is selling 800 units a month, so that's pretty healthy, what would its stock be so that PPC is not affected? I'm just going to make this a very simple answer. Don't run out of stock. So if you want a better answer than that, I would say focus on having 2 to 3 months at least at a time. So you're constantly ordering so that you have, let's say 60 to, 2-3 months, 60 to 90 days worth of stock in there at all times. Where PPC could be affected is if you run out of stock or you're really low on stock and maybe all the stock is in the West Coast. And so people in the West Coast and California and Oregon and Nevada and Arizona, they're getting 1-day shipping times versus maybe everyone on the East Coast, because the East Coast is run low because Amazon is running low on the product and they don't have enough to move around effectively. And so maybe people on the East Coast, which is more of a population center than the West Coast, all of a sudden they, excuse me. Sorry about that. But those folks on the, Sorry about that, folks. That's what happens when you go live. All right. So maybe the folks on the East Coast are getting quoted 3-4 day shipping times for when they order the product. That could affect your ACoSs because it would affect conversions. So just something to think about. But I would say PPC and inventory levels aren't necessarily tied together, except when you start running low and there's not enough for Amazon to spread around. And then also just don't run out. So rule number 1, don't run out and then have enough. So don't run out is the main rule, but then have enough so Amazon can move stuff around. And you also don't end up with stuff in fulfillment center transfer sometimes for 2-3 weeks. And keep in mind, if you've not gone through the holiday season, assuming this is even remotely giftable, this will probably have 3 to 5 times what a normal month would be, between, let's say, the 29th, which is Black Friday, and the 23rd. So November 29th to December 23rd, it'll probably do 3 to 5 times what it does in a normal month, just during that time period. And that's even less than a month. Just the way Black Friday, or actually the way Thanksgiving falls this year, which affects Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the rest of the holiday season. So we have a shorter holiday season this year, which is, I'm curious to see how that goes. All right, which we also did in 2019. All right, so Brian B, question: I'm getting killed from competition that's lowering their prices dramatically. Should I consider dropping my prices this close to BFCM? All right, good question. One of the things you have to ask yourself is, what would your mom say when you were a kid about everyone else is doing X? Well, if they all jumped off a bridge, would you? What? They might be jumping off of a financial bridge. So sometimes people will say like, oh, just get the sales, get the sales, get the sales. But at a certain point, like, do you have, if you start like spiking the algorithm because you're getting lots of sales where you're losing money per unit, do you need to? If you're already on page 1 for, really good keywords, maybe it's not worth it to you. Are you going to be sacrificing inventory when it's busier and people are converting better in mid-December because they don't have time anymore? Like right now, there's window shoppers. There are people like who are, kids on their parents' phone, shopping around, clicking on stuff, trying to figure out what do they want. So kind of like when I was a kid, we would get the Sears or the JCPenney catalog, and I would flip through it looking for gifts. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. And for those of you who are like, what are you talking about? I just dated myself. But point being, people are clicking and they're doing window shopping. So window shopping used to be, you'd walk around a mall, or you'd look at a catalog and you'd come up with ideas. Now you're on Amazon clicking stuff and they're not paying any attention to it. Oh, that's a sponsored link. I don't want to cause that seller to, have to pay for a click. No, they're not thinking about that. They're just like, oh, that's interesting. What's that? Oh, that's that. There's click, 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 click. So a lot of window shopping happening. But then in mid-December, there's less window shopping because they have to buy stuff. Time is running out. The most effective, in my opinion, marketing device is scarcity of time. And so as you get closer to Christmas, you have scarcity of time. Right now, you have lots of time in people's perception to buy stuff for Christmas. They're not even thinking about it. They're more just, well, they are thinking about it. They're not thinking of actually adding to cart. So a lot of people are just window shopping. So you're probably getting killed on PPC now. So you want to get killed on PPC now, high ACoS, and lose money for lowering your price if you are even remotely concerned about having enough inventory in December. If you're not worried about that, then I would say, maybe spike it a little bit and see how it goes. But at the end of the day, don't just lower your price because everyone else does. I was having this discussion with a family member just the other day. So family member who used to work for the government, was at one point living in the DC area in Alexandria, Virginia. He was describing there was a set of townhouses that was near the Potomac River. Nice. And this is in like the 70s or something like that. And they were going for like, let's say $60,000, which was a decent amount of money at that time period. You probably could never buy real estate in the DC area for $60,000 these days. But these townhouses were going for a decent amount of money, but they couldn't sell them. So apparently they tripled the price, and then they all sold with quickly. Now, does that necessarily happen on Amazon quite the same way? No. The point being is sometimes higher price just has a higher perception of value, meaning, oh, it's more premium. So do you want to get in the price dropping game? Price dropping game is oftentimes a losing game. And oftentimes you're competing with either sellers from maybe China who have the ability to lower their prices because maybe they are the factory, so they have more margin, or they're even being subsidized by their government or whatever the case is. I don't know. But the point is, if it's, another seller who's not in China or whatever the case is, they might just be able to absorb more, or they are just freaking out themselves because they want to get ranked higher. Lowering your price is something my Amazon guy suggests doing from time to time. I would just be careful doing it just because everyone else is doing it, especially if you don't need to. So maybe there's more to that question that I don't have the information for, but that's my 2 cents. All right. Sir, for newly launched product, which campaign will we run on Amazon? I would say yes. And the reason I say yes is I would do auto, I would do broad, and I would do exact, potentially phrase. I would run all of them, all the above. Some people will say, wait until you get a certain number of views. I say, just start selling. You got to start spiking that algorithm. You got to let the algorithm know you're there. In some ways that the algorithm knows you're there is that customers are buying, they're clicking and they're buying. So I would say start running ads now. Run all of them. All right. Any special tips or recommendations for the holiday season? Yes. One of it is just know there is a cycle every year with the holiday season. There is, as I was talking about earlier, a lot of window shoppers right now. Now, the interesting thing with that is in most reports, you get a 7-day attribution window. Christian Otto Kelm at a summit that I hosted in the past was showing that I think an Amazon Web Services, or not Amazon Web Services, Amazon Marketing Services, Marketing Cloud, which I'm not all that familiar with, but basically he was showing reports that there's data kind of that you have to have like APIs to connect to. It's not just something like you can just pull a report for, but going back into longer attribution windows, some of the people that are clicking today are buying in 60 days when they're like running, actually 60 days would have been past Christmas, but people maybe they were clicking a month ago buy the Christmas gifts that maybe they added to a list or whatever the case is, because you can add lists in Amazon, or they just remembered, oh, I got to buy that, and so they might be doing their research now to buy later. So don't get too worried if your ACoSs are higher than normal now. That's par for the course. When you get to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, sometimes people are like, oh my God, that's it. No, I personally find, and I've talked to a lot of other sellers, especially if you have giftable items, it's like mid-December is the best time. So like for me, the weekend, I'm looking at a calendar right now, December 14th and 15th will probably be my best weekend of the holiday, probably the best couple of days of the holiday season. And it's like that every year, whatever that weekend is, where there's more than a week. It's like the final week where there's only a week until Christmas. And then you get a whole bunch of people. Then what happens is you start finding that it starts to slow down. Then it starts to kind of taper off a little bit. And like the 22nd, 23rd, the sales will start to fall off a cliff. Like it'll peak, let's say around December 14th, 15th, and it'll start to come down a little bit. It's still way better than like, an average month. And then Christmas will be kind of slow for a couple of days. Christmas Eve, Christmas, 24th, 25th. Then that week after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's Eve, it'll pick up a little bit. New Year's Eve, I tend to find is really slow. New Year's Day is a little slow. And then January, for a non-Q4 month, tends to be the best possible month. So just knowing the cycle that's coming up, and in case anyone's wondering, why is January such a good month if everyone spent all their money? Well, what do people give each other? Gift cards. I don't know what you want. Here's a gift card. Oftentimes, like, oh, what is my Uncle Bill, or not my uncle? I actually have an Uncle Bill. I shouldn't use that example. What does Cousin Harry want? Oh, we'll get cousin Harry a gift card. So, they give people gift cards because they can't think of what else to buy people. And those gift cards tend to get redeemed throughout the year. But when do they get redeemed the most? Right after the holidays, which would be the week after Christmas and into probably the first 2-3 weeks of January. And then by the end of January, it's kind of business as normal. And when you get to December, mid-December, you start finding your PPC, your ACoS will go down considerably, because they don't have time to think about it. Oh my God, I got work, I got a holiday party, I got I got travel arrangements, I got all these other things. Everyone talks about how busy they are during December. So, and they also got to find time to buy gifts. Well, they're running out of time. So once you get to mid-December, that looks good. Yeah, I think Johnny will like that. Sally will like that. Click, add to cart, go. They just do it. They're running out of time. They're stressed out. Going back to what I said before, scarcity of time is one of the most effective devices in marketing. You can't necessarily fake it, but if you have a real event coming up, hey, the deal ends this day, or in this case, Christmas is once a year and it's ending soon, that is a huge driver of sales. And then also note, be forewarned, January, you're going to have really big returns and you could probably see if you go to buy a product right now, and it's been this way for a little while, it'll say you can return all the way up to, I believe it's January 31st. So the return window is long. And so if you have higher than normal sales during November and December, and they have all the way, and they're not even going to look at it in most cases, because they're a lot of cases giving it to someone else. So that person's not even going to look at it and decide whether or not they want it until very late December. And then in January, now all of a sudden they're I don't want this, I'm going to return it. So your percentage of the sales that you're making in January versus the refund percentage that you're getting is going to be high, because you're really getting refunds for purchases people made in November and December. So hopefully that helps. Please give us the clear structure of PPC. Please give me a little bit more. What is the question you have? Is it about campaign structure? I'd be more than happy to answer a question, but give me a little bit more to work with. It's kind of like saying, tell me everything you know about PPC. But I'll be more than happy to answer the question. Just dial it in a little more. Manel asks, how more PPC generate more organic? No one really knows what the answer to that is. And some of it is there's more PPC placements than there used to be and fewer organic placements. So that used to be that people would say okay, PPC has a big effect on organic because there was a lot of organic placements that it could affect. Whereas now there's more PPC purchases that can only affect a smaller number of organic placements. So because that ratio is out of whack, but it still shows Amazon that this is a product that people want. So let's bring back up. Let's bring back the screen. All right. So we were looking at pimple patches earlier. So pimple patches. So what's interesting is not a lot of reports, but some of the reports Amazon gives you, like Amazon experiments, You can tell that when they say conversion rate, they're talking about from here, the search results page, to the purchase. They're not talking necessarily about somebody clicks on this and makes a purchase. So they're not talking about the session rates. They are talking about, because there's only so many people searching pimple patches or whatever they're searching for, what percentage of them are more likely to come into a sale? So what products do they want to showcase that are going to be more likely to get them a sale? You want sales, Amazon wants sales. So you're aligned there. But Amazon does not care who gets the sale. They're very agnostic into who gets the sale. They just want sales. So if your product is going to be more likely to get it, you're going to get more sales. So some of it is there, whether it's honeymoon, cold start problem, whatever the case is, new products, Amazon doesn't necessarily know like what products that are new people want, because they're not tested, because they got to have some level of someone clicks on it and then purchases. So scrolling down here, there's a lot going on there. This product, let's just find one. This one here, that's a name brand, Biore. Okay, this one here, Pimple Patch, which is not a name brand I've heard of, although they're getting decent sales, 1,000 a month. Let's pick this one because it doesn't say a number per month. We're on page 3. As you've probably heard, the best place to hide a dead body is on page 3 of search results on anything. Amazon, Google, whatever. And that joke is because nobody is clicking to page 3. They're usually just refining their search or just dealing with whatever they see on that page. So the only way this product has a chance to get more impressions, higher ranked, where people are more likely to see it, is to jump the line. Now, even with ads, you might not necessarily show up, even if you're willing to spend lots of money to be top of search on page 1. Let me go back to page 1. So you might not get one of these premium placements, but maybe you get something here on the first page, because there's lots of opportunity. Sponsored. Yeah, there's more results. 4 out of 5 are sponsored. Trending now, all sponsored. These are all organic. This one is organic. These are all sponsored. So at least you're kind of giving a signal to the algorithm of like, okay, someone searches for pimple patches, they might show up. So that one I was showing that was on page 3 organically, if they get a few sales, maybe Amazon bumps them up to page 2, and they kind of like move up through the ranks as time goes on. But they also need to start getting organic sales too. So what's interesting though about Amazon compared to, let's say, Google. So if we look up pimple patches, and I misspelled it, which is always good to throw in misspellings, either in alt text of your A+ content or in the back end search terms, because you can see I just misspelled it there. But, like Google, like they don't care. So whatever they're going to show here is sponsored. They're not going to be, some people in the SEO world of Google might say, okay, there's a little bit of influence, but not as much as Amazon, because Google just wants to show relevancy. Whereas, Amazon, the sponsored placements are kind of like a test for organic placements. I don't think it's as much of an effect as it used to be once upon a time, but at least has an effect to some degree. So hopefully that answered the question. All right. Hamza says, sir, please guide the whole structure of PPC from 0 to 7 figures. Okay. Would you like me to write you a business plan too? I don't mean to be overly sarcastic, but give me a specific question. I'd be more than happy to. But, more than anything, you got to get sales and you want to do it profitably. So that's what I would suggest. This is a good question here about, should you do optimization daily? If not, then after how many days is best for optimization or scaling? I personally do it most of the year, about once every week or two in my own account. When I'm in the holiday season, I'm doing it every couple of days. And some of it just depends on, how much data do you have? Like if you're spending $20 a day on ads, you don't need to check it that often. If you're If you have keywords that are spending $200 a day for that keyword, you probably want to check it more often, maybe daily, at least for that keyword, or for certain campaigns. And maybe the other campaigns you check less frequently. But a lot of it just depends on the term some people use is data sufficiency. All right. So from there, how to distribute keywords on different campaigns effectively and how many keywords per campaign. Yeah. So this is different people have different opinions on this. I think if you're going to use single keyword campaigns, use them very sparingly. A lot of people would say no more than 5 to 10 or sometimes 20 keywords per campaign. If you have low volume campaigns, include them in there. Include as many as you want in there. My general philosophy, which is different than a lot of people's, is don't build yourself a prison that you have to spend a lot of time administering. Sorry about that. All right. We're live, folks. All right. So I have campaigns that hardly spend any money. I'll put 50, 100 keywords in them. It's fine. More than anything, if you spend more money, you got to be careful about controlling where the budget goes. If you're not worried about where the budget goes, you theoretically can have more keywords in a campaign. But if you want more control, you want to have fewer keywords. So that's generally where a lot of people in the PPC world will say, no more than 5, 10 keywords per campaign, is because they're trying to have more control. So for example, if you pull the lever, so to speak, of, placement modifiers, you're doing it for everything in that campaign. So you have less control over where you're trying to adjust that if you have lots of keywords in your campaigns. Like I said, I have a lot of campaigns that don't spend a lot of money because I have a pretty large catalog. I'm not as worried about that, because I don't want to add, let's say I have a product that does $12 a week of ads. Having 10 campaigns is just going to water down the administration of it. So some of it is you just kind of have to look at how much control do you need? And if you're spending more, you probably want more control. If you're spending less, then you don't need control. So that's my thought process. But if you want, what a lot of people would say is if you have campaigns spending a decent amount of money, no more than 5 or 10, because it gives you more control, and to try to keep them somewhat semantically similar. Meaning if it's, red dry erase marker, maybe everything is dry erase marker that's in that campaign. And if you want to have more broader keywords, when I say broad, I mean that, maybe flip chart markers are in their own, even though dry erase and flip chart are kind of the same marker, but maybe what type of keywords you're using, or maybe red markers, different types of red marker keywords all go into their own campaigns. And so you're kind of organizing them that way. All right. So Pasca Anne Maria says, is it true that swimming goggles is a very competitive niche? Everything's a very competitive niche these days. I'm working with an agency from more than 1 year, and a few weeks ago, they told me that it's impossible to make profit on this niche because of high CPC and competitors. I'm selling 10 to 20 sets a day. I have more than 100 reviews, but still no profit. Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, some of that's going to be seasonal. So if you're currently selling 10, 20, sorry about that. If you're currently selling 10, 20 a day for swimming goggles, that's pretty good. Now, swimming goggles, part of the problem is they're I don't think they cost that much. Swimming goggles. All right, so let's just take a look at this just for fun. All right, let me share my screen again. All right, so for swimming goggles, yeah, so you got these that are polarized or a little bit, maybe for people that are highly competitive. I was in the swim team my senior year in high school. Know a little bit about it. Which, a lot of times people swim outside. So, they want to have something that maybe protects their eyes. So that would be a little bit more expensive. But I would suggest, figuring out like, okay, how can you have a more expensive swim goggle? So maybe the prices of these are fairly low right now just because it's not swim season, or maybe it is swim season. I guess in some place it's competitive swimming season in the fall. At least it is here in Florida. But like in the summertime, I would imagine swimming goggles do really well because people buy their kids goggles because more places, at least in the United States, are swimming. Whereas in Florida, people swim pretty much year round. But I'm assuming this is a somewhat seasonal product, meaning summer and then maybe fall if it's competitive, or wherever competitive swimming happens in different places might have a little bit of a bump, especially before the season starts. So I would look at, can you do 2-packs? Can you do, what can you do to make the product more competitive? Adding in a case of some sort. I mean, like you look at one like this, it's selling for $3.99. They're already losing $1, for the Amazon fee. Like I'm almost positive it's still $1 minimum for the commission. And then here, whatever, let's assume it's about $4.50 for the FBA fee. I mean, they're losing money before they even paid for the product. Just to make the sale, they lost money without even paying for the product. So I wouldn't go after someone like that. But is there another usage of the product? I know that wasn't the exact question. I have more than 100 reviews, but still no profit. What can you do to be more profitable? And, some of it is maybe you just have to kind of accept that it's not profitable, or it's at least break even this time of year, that maybe holidays it does a little bit better, before the summer it does a little bit better. And so I'm just kind of curious about this. You were with an agency a few weeks ago. They told me it's impossible to make profit on this niche. I would say it's never impossible, but you have to have different strategies. So if you're looking at everyone that's selling for like $13, maybe it's harder to make a profit. Whereas like this one here, that's selling for $23 and they sold 200. This one here sold 300. So people are willing to spend on higher quality. In fact, some of the ones that have higher prices seem to be getting the higher sales. So I would say, look at your pricing, look at your main images. Are you going for a race to the bottom with this product, or is this product, kind of a way in for some other strategy? Are you trying to compete on price? Is there something else you can do to be profitable? There's always something you can do. It might be harder in more competitive niches, but I believe there's always something you can do. My Amazon guy recommended to add Spanish keywords because of low cost per click with high search volume. But in case of books is always different. It requires more keywords compared to products. Is it wise to add Spanish keywords for English books? I think it's wise to test it. Like for example, there's a lot of people who maybe they search in their native language, but they speak and read multiple languages. One of the things I heard the statistic a while back, more people buy in Spanish on Amazon.com than on Amazon Mexico. So Amazon Mexico is the native Amazon for a Spanish speaking country, but yet the US has more people searching Spanish keywords and purchasing products. Now, I could see that be a little bit more challenging in books. With that being said, because if I look up, marker in Spanish, whatever that word is, and I buy this, great. I bought it, I found it, and I don't need to speak any particular language to use this. If it's an English book, then chances are I don't, or let me say this. If I searched in Spanish, maybe it's just because I'm used to searching for things in Spanish. I know a lot of times this is my personal belief, just knowing people that speak Spanish, is that at least down here in South Florida, a lot of people that speak Spanish like to do business in Spanish, but they know both languages. So they might just be accustomed to searching in Spanish, but then they find a book they like that's in English and they read it because they read English just fine. That could be part of it. But that could be a smaller segment of the Spanish speaking population. And just because people interact with books, if the book is in English, you got to read it in English. Because I'm assuming, especially if this is a physical book, there's not the ability to translate it. So I would say maybe it's worth testing, but with a book, I would be less optimistic than I would be like if you're selling just a product that people buy. And once they have it, they don't necessarily need to worry about what language it is. All right, next up, start PPC before or after first review. My opinion, before. And I have a product that's just doing fairly well. First review came in, it was 1 star. People still buy it. I've had that happen multiple times. And I have other products that are doing really well and they have no reviews. I mean, really well for having a large catalog of products. So it's worth testing out, because here's the thing. In order to get reviews, you need to get sales. In order to get sales, you need to get impressions. In order to get impressions, you need sales. So everything you to get both reviews and to get impressions, you need more sales. So I would just get the sales and just know it's going to be a little bit more expensive in the beginning. You're going to convert less just because you have less social proof, meaning you have fewer reviews. People are going to less likely to click on it because there's fewer reviews, but just have a good listing, have a good main image, maybe lower your pricing a little bit in the beginning, but I would say definitely do it in the beginning. All right. So next up, Zishan asks how to compete in a competitive category if we have our own manufacturing. Oh, well, good news is you have a little bit more margin to play with, I would imagine. But just like anything else, have a good listing, have good main image, have good copy, go after targeted keywords, things like that. So those would be things I would think about. All right, next up, I'm going to go over just by a few minutes here. Brian says, I never sleep during Q4. I kind of feel the same way. And then Brian says Mustafa also used Mag's pricing strategy for launching to encourage no review purchases. So yeah, like I was saying, start low. Steven will say as low as 50% off, and then like not like a coupon, but like if you're planning on selling it for 40, you offer in the beginning for 20, and then it depends how you want to do this. Maybe you increase by like 10% increments. You start off at like you go from 20 to 25, or that math didn't work out with 10%. You know what I mean? But just add slowly over time until you get to about 8 weeks in, then be at your target price, or raise it every 50 sales, or just raise it every few sales, because maybe 50 sales is going to take you a while because you're like me and you have a large catalog of products that none of them are doing huge sales, but collectively they do well. All right. What do we have here next? In keywords, increase. I can't talk today. Increase keyword bid or decrease keyword placement, or increase keyword placement. I would personally, I like to do it on the keyword level. as opposed to the placement level, because placement affects the whole campaign. Keyword is just that keyword. So if you have 20 keywords in a campaign, or 10 keywords in a campaign, or 5 keywords in a campaign, maybe only one of them's really doing well with placement. So you would, if you increase the placement modifier, you do it for everything in that campaign. Killed. I'm getting killed. Like almost page 2. I have margin. Oh, this must be maybe more insight into the question asked earlier. $14 item. They're selling 2 for 10. Oh, this is the competitor that's going low price. My main concern is the 20% mandatory drop for the Prime exclusive discount. Solid advice. Time is the best seller. Yes. Yes. Nothing beats time is running out. All right. When it comes to selling. So yeah. But back to the concern about a drop for Prime exclusive discount. Maybe you don't want to do a Prime exclusive discount. Just because Amazon says do this, doesn't mean you necessarily have to, especially if you are even remotely concerned about having enough inventory for when people aren't as deal hungry, because they're running out of time. And as you said there, time is the best seller. All right. With that, I think we might have time for 1 or 2 more questions. I know we have a lot of good questions. I'm going to miss a whole bunch of them. So if I miss you, it's nothing personal. I'm already going a little bit over time here. Oh, do you have a setup for retargeting for window shoppers? Yeah, you could do one of those, drawing a blank on what they're called, but some of those brand tailored promotions, I believe it's called. And sorry, folks, I put a cough drop in my mouth because I kept coughing. So if my voice sounds a little funny. But yeah, I would say, do retargeting with brand tailored promotions. I wouldn't even worry about DSP unless you have a huge product, but you can do retargeting for people like through display ads. Retargeting, I've had mixed results personally with. It's worth at least trying out, but just keep in mind, like, people, they've either saved your product to use it in the future or not. So my personal opinion, retargeting might work because at least like that's somebody who might be interested. But one of the challenges with Amazon is that, like, if you're doing search on Amazon, you are very much involved in, I am looking for this product because I'm interested in buying this product either now or sometime into the future. So that's why Amazon converts so well, because people are in that buyer state of mind. Now, if you start doing like display ads that are showing like on something completely unrelated, they're looking for swimming goggles and you're trying to show them pimple patches. Like, maybe there's somebody who buys pimple patches, but they're just not thinking about that. There's another marketing saying, if you want to walk aside the conversation they're already having in their head, keywords are a way of doing that, because I'm looking for pimple patches right now. I'm not looking for swimming goggles. So something to keep in mind. So whatever they're looking for in that moment is what they're thinking about. So that's walking by the conversation in their head. Some sort of retargeting could be worth doing. All right. Worth testing out. For well-performing campaigns, this will probably be our last question here. For well-performing campaigns, how high do you like to go with the budget? As much as allow me to spend. And then at what stage of the campaign's life do you adjust the budget? So one of the things to keep in mind with Amazon with budget is you could put $1,000 budget on a campaign, but that doesn't mean you're going to spend $1,000. With, let's say, Facebook ads or like Google Performance Max, if you say you want to spend $1,000 a day, they'll find a way. They will find a way to spend it. But if it's Amazon sponsored product ads and it's based on people have to search and they have to show you for people who are searching for that product or that keyword, if it's not relevant, if your product's not relevant, they're They're not just going to show you. Or there's not enough people searching. There's only so many people searching. So don't get too wrapped up in budget. Budget is more of a guardrail, in my opinion, meaning you don't want to, you're going after markers, and maybe it's a very big keyword and a lot of people are clicking on it, and you don't want to go crazy because you don't know if you're going to do well with markers as a keyword. So the campaign that it's in, you have a smaller budget and you can always increase it over time as it proves itself. Now, if you run out of budget, like you just run out of budget and then they stop showing your ad for that day. So if you could have spent $100 a day and you only have a budget of $30 a day, then you have, theoretically, it doesn't exactly work this way, but you have about 70% of the day that you're not showing your ads. So I would suggest, if it's working well, just increase the budget, especially if it's working well, it's profitable, you're happy with it, you're not worried about inventory. Now, if you're worried about inventory going into the holiday season, maybe you don't want to have all of your inventory being used for paid ads now when you could sell more, potentially more profitable if you're worried about running out of inventory, which could happen. Then also remember, you also have Chinese New Year after the holiday season. So just kind of think through over the next few months. Do you want to spend your inventory? I don't know, I said that intentionally. Spend your inventory now, or do you want to spend that inventory later? Because once someone buys it, you've used up that potential sale if you are in a situation where you might run out of inventory. Now, if you have a container load that's sitting in a 3PL somewhere and you're like, I've got plenty to send in, or, I've got, pallets and pallets in Amazon warehousing and distribution, go for it. But if there's any concern, I would say maybe don't increase the budget. But if you're not worried about running out of inventory and the campaigns are successful, increase that puppy. Just why let it run out is usually my philosophy, as long as I'm not worried about the inventory. That's the one caveat there. All right. Lots of good questions. We didn't get a chance to get to yet. I did go 15 minutes over, but we will do real quick here a giveaway. So I'm going to give away, somebody asked me for the Amazon PPC course. So I'm going to give away my Amazon Guys Amazon PPC course, as well as I'm going to give away the PPC, the recordings of the PPC Mastery Summit Q4 edition from about 3 weeks ago. All you got to do is just type in PPC into the chat, and you will be entered to win PPC Mastery Summit, which the recordings, people paid as much as $197 for it, plus the PPC course is $100. That's $297 for a giveaway. All you got to do is type in PPC into the chat, and I'll just let you know one little secret. Every time I do these things, more people will sit on the sidelines and not enter than will enter. So you always give yourself a good chance of winning by simply typing in whatever it is into the chat. So in this case, it's PPC, as in case you're not familiar, pay-per-click. So type in PPC into the chat to be entered to win my Amazon Guys PPC course, as well as the recent, under our sister company, Maximizing Ecommerce, the PPC Mastery Summit Q4 edition. All right. So with that, I'm going to pull up the wheel of names. All right. Now let me share my screen. Maybe. There we go. All right. No ads. Close ads. All right. So we have Manel joining us from Facebook. We have Control-Alt keys. I like that. What other keys would you use than delete? That's the one I know the most. Control Alt Delete. I just remember that as a kid. Just hit Control Alt Delete, restart. We have Hitesh. We have Eric. And so we are, if you're joining us, like, why is he typing into like what looks like a kind of Wheel of Fortune thing or a little pie chart? We have a competition. We're going to give away the My Amazon Guy PPC course and the Maximizing Ecommerce PPC Mastery Summit Q4 edition. And to be entered to win, all you got to do is type in PPC into the chat. And this is last call. We have way more people watching than we have people who are entering to win. So that means the odds are in your favor. Mustafa. So Mustafa, then we have KC. All right. So this is it. Oh, no. We have more. But wait. There's more. No, I didn't miss you. I added you just now. We have Kifa joining us from LinkedIn. We have Emma. We have Wasif says, you missed me. No, that's you right here. We have Mustafa. No, we already addressed that one. And then we have Akifa Tariq. And then I think that's it. All right. So with that, we are going to go ahead and choose a winner. So going once, going twice. Win the win. I don't know if y'all hear that clapping sound, but anyway, there's a celebratory clapping sound there at the end. So Eric, congratulations. You are the winner. Just email me, Kevin. No, let's have you email podcast@myamazonguy.com. So again, podcast singular at myamazonguy.com. Let me know you were the winner of the free PPC course and the PPC Mastery Summit. And I will get that for you. So yeah, you won. I'm more than would say it is my pleasure. We're excited that you're here and everyone else that's here. If you didn't win, come to another one. I tend to give stuff away quite a bit. So Hitesh says claps. Sari says, or Sari, sorry, says and me. So I'm assuming and claps, meaning is happy and excited. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us. We did go a little bit over. I went over 20 minutes. I don't always go over, especially when I have guests, but I'm glad you're here. And with that, I wish you well. Take care.